Hey, Marcus here, marcusblankenship.com. After my last email about the Grow Happy Developers Workshop, some of you emailed me back who weren't managers and said something I really kind of wasn't expecting. You said, Marcus, I'm an unhappy developer, but how do I get my boss to listen? And how do I get him to take your workshop? So I want to give you a couple of strategies that worked for me when I was working for a boss. And let's see if we can kind of solve this. What I'm not going to do is try and convince you should sell him on taking my workshop, okay? So these are things that are within your area of control. The first is you can schedule a one-on-one meeting with him. You can walk in, knock on the door, and say, hey boss, I'd like to chat with you. And then you can tell him, I really find that I feel more empowered and more motivated with my work when I have a closer sense of how it contributes to the larger company goals. And I really see you as somebody who can help me with that as my supervisor. So could we just schedule, say, 15 to 30 minutes every week where you kind of help me connect the dots with the work that I'm doing and how it contributes to the larger picture? Okay, so most managers absolutely would love to hear this from an employee. And here's why. We have the impression a lot of times that developers are obsessed with code and not at all concerned with the business. They sort of think of that as messy. So you're going to really differentiate yourself when you knock on his door and you ask if you can have a regular time every week to talk with him one-on-one. And these are important concepts, regular and one-on-one, where you can understand better the impact that your work has on the organization. I would be shocked if any boss didn't agree to give you that time because they knew in their gut that they should be doing that. They know in their gut their job is to create a great software team, not to write software. This is especially fun if you catch them at the keyboard at the compiler, right? Because they also know that's not their job too. So the second strategy I have is for you, even if your boss says, no, I don't have time, I'm too busy, go talk to this person over there. Okay, maybe you talk to the product manager, but you have to persist a little bit more. You might have to say, well, Sharon, I appreciate the product manager is going to have a best insight on how these features really help the company in the long run. But what I want to do is I want to connect with you so that I can help you be more successful. And in the end, I can help us create a great engineering organization. Now, this is also going to shock your manager. This phrase, I want to help you be more successful, is probably something that your manager has never heard before. See, he also has the idea that his developers or her developers, they're primarily interested in themselves. They're interested in their own work, in their own output, and again, code for code's sakes. We as programmers get that reputation. So when you ask your manager, how can I help you be more successful? What you're doing is you're really asking them to open the door into their world, to let you in, to pull back the curtain. You might have to ask more than once, but guaranteed if you actually care, and especially if you notice times when they're stressed, running around like a chicken with their head cut off, when they're actively, possibly they're reshuffling meetings, they're staying late, there's nothing like having somebody come along and give you a hand to really make you feel like, wow, this person cares about me and maybe I can trust them. Maybe it is safe for me to bring them a little closer into my world. So that is a way of you really giving by example. It really shows servant leadership, servant stewardship from the ground up as to how a good manager would act. Now I want to just beware you though. Both of these things, once you start having one-on-ones with your manager, especially if you start having them and other people in the organization aren't, you'll probably be thought of as someone who should be promoted soon. Now, this is not a promotion strategy, but what this is this is for you to be aware that so few people take an interest in the business and the organizational health that I virtually guarantee any manager worth his salt, unless he's completely threatened by you, and we'll get to that in a second, any manager worth their salt is going to welcome that help, is going to welcome you into their world. So let's talk about what happens if a manager feels threatened. If you get the sense that your manager doesn't want to let you in because There's a boundary, your job and their job. I think what you can do is you can say, we're all one team, one fight, right? Whether you're at a startup, boy, there's a great one. That's why I love startups. There's a great one team mentality at a startup. It doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're pushing forward products, features, values, customers. Those are the things we have to get right. At larger organizations, though, dysfunction can creep in. And if you work in a larger organization and your manager starts to feel like you're threatening, like, oh, are you looking, do you want my job? Is that what you're doing? Are you trying to get a promotion? What you can do is you can say, all I want is 30 minutes of your time so that I can better understand how I can be a better employee, how I can better understand how I can create a career here. I'm trying to invest myself in this company, and I want to invest myself in you. I actually don't like to see my boss so stressed out. It makes me nervous. I actually don't like to see you here until 11. It makes me feel like there's something more I could do. So I'm not asking for a promotion. I don't want anything in return, but just let me help you and know that my cubicle door is always open. So please think about tasks you can give me. Now, the first time you hear this again, the first time you say this again, you're probably going to get okay, I'll think about it. You're at arm's length. So ask again. In fact, if he agrees just to have a 15-minute a week one-on-one, end each meeting with the question, what can I do this week, today, to make your job a little bit easier? I have to say I did this at my last company, and I worked for a great, phenomenal boss. It was a very hierarchical structure, and I found that when I started asking that, at first, he was hesitant. He was a little bit like, no, I'm fine, you're busy, I've got my plate, you've got yours. But as time went on, he started to realize I really was interested in what he did. I was interested in what the company did. I did want a broader view. And that initiative alone, just asking that question, how can I help you to be more successful? What could I take off your plate this week? The most trivial task, it could be, oh, I just need to file these things. Okay, great, I know how to file. I'll take 30 minutes out of my day. It's not below me. You'd be surprised, sometimes your manager's doing work that you might even think is below you. But the reality is he knows he's got to get it done, or she. So when I did this with my boss, it took repeated asking. But over time, he let me come a little closer, and we had amazing conversations. And it was through those that we built a real trust. To this day, we're great friends. Whenever he comes into town, we have dinner, and I look forward to it. But what he did is, as he moved up and around, he basically brought me with him. And that was a fantastic political advantage. You see, him and I were allies, forged in the hard times, both of us there at 11 at night. Literally, if I saw him there at 11, I would walk in and I would say, hey, you're still here. Or heck, at 6, I'd say, what are you working on? How can I help? 30 minutes of my time might help. And I like to think he got to go home a little bit earlier because of my efforts. In the end, again, this was not about sucking up. This is not about trying to get a promotion. This is about taking the initiative and realizing that a relationship does take two individuals, but you do not have to leave it to your manager to be the one to initiate a stronger relationship. You can do that. So go knock on their door and ask, do you have a few minutes? So one other thing I want you to realize is there's a really good chance that your manager used to be a developer just like you. And his manager used to be a developer just like him. And each of us have this idea that there is a boundary between us, that I'll do my job and you do yours. And in the same way as you are probably naturally really hesitant, thinking, well, if my boss wants a close one-on-one relationship with me, why doesn't he come and ask for it? But your boss is also thinking the same thing. Well, if Marcus wanted that kind of relationship, he'd come and ask for it. But you know, I bet Marcus just wants a job to go to where he does his best and then he goes home. See, Marcus doesn't see me as a friend, and you shouldn't. He's your boss. She's your boss. But the reality is that they might be just as concerned about taking that step to try and have that kind of one-on-one relationship as you are. And again, don't imagine that your going there is going to solve everything the first time, but a little bit of persistence, just a little bit, I promise that door will crack open.